Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. This time, Melora, Deep Space Nine episode, Melora on It's All Been Tracked Before. Makes me think of Melora Hardin, makes me think of The Office. Get away from The Office. Follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/IABD. Actually, come to our office. It's a lot of fun. You get to see everything behind the scenes. You get the bonus content. You get the Mothership. It's All Been Done Radio Hour. Get that stuff way before everybody else. It's futuristic. It's on the Star Trek theme. Become a member, patreon.com/IABD. Now, it's not Melora Hardin, but it is Melora on Deep Space Nine on It's All Been Tracked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Stephen.
Me, Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. Again, Keith with the joke nobody's going to get because I don't usually leave the intro on. I did recently, I was editing an episode, I did leave the pre-show joke on so they finally get one of your references.
Oh, I did hear that.
Yeah. Normally we cut it. But we are here to talk about the Deep Space Nine episode, Melora, First Impressions.
I found it charming for the most part. There are a couple of things that I predicted. They faked me out. Predicted again, or I made another prediction that did come true, and then another. Yeah, so I don't know. One thing I noticed, and this is something that's certainly a fashionable term, I will admit, is a phenomenon called autistic coding, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
Yep.
But for the people at home who might not be, it's when you have these quirky characters who exhibit traits that we would now understand to be associated with autism. They're different in certain ways, and they come across as either charming or again, the word quirky, adorable, that kind of thing. If you're lucky, sometimes they're just abrasive or annoying, or they're the characters that are to be patronized in some way. But like within seconds of having. Was Melora the character's name?
Yes.
Melora, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Melora problem. That's what you meant. Really.
Melora Pazlar.
Yeah. But within seconds of her speak, like the first word out of her mouth, I was like, yep. Okay. Well, that's what's happening here. And, I appreciated it as it went on. I'll stop there, I would say, for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it had some... it was not uninteresting. The heavy praise. From the drop, I knew where it was going. I think there were a few surprises along the way, Keith. To your point, that I think helped keep it interesting. Some interesting things, but it definitely felt like right from the beginning, okay, we're going to go hard into like kind of this handy-capable, for lack of a better word, which is laudable. But also, this time, our boy Bashir gets love. It felt very much like a TOS episode, or worse yet, a LaForge episode. But
wasn't that bad?
No, and I was going to say, it wasn't as bad as the LaForge episodes, and it wasn't as bad as the Lights of Zatar either. So there are definitely parts of it I like. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely remember this episode. It's not one of the ones that I was looking forward to watching again. It's not terrible. It's not. It could be worse. I get what they're trying to do. For its time, I think it was fairly progressive. I wish we'd gotten more development on that character than one episode. They had intended to bring her back. They even kept all the harnesses and everything for years, really? And never ended up bringing her back. So, like, season 5, they ended up throwing them away because they were, like, taking up a lot of space.
My third note was, she won't last the next week. This is it.
They were planning on.
There we go.
They were planning, but they did say they had to hand paint out the wires. So that's why they couldn't use them any more than they did, because it was a very laborious process. But she does appear in a ton of the novels. Like, she goes on to serve under Captain Riker in the Star Trek Titan novels. Okay. So we get development for her there. It's just a shame that they did not bring her back on the show as they intended to. And it kind of reminds me, like last season, there was that security officer or whatever when O'Brien was gone that I was like, why didn't they bring him back? And it's not that they weren't bringing people back this early, because they brought back Garrick. They brought back, we're going to get Zek back soon, the Grand Negus, Wynn and Bareil. But I guess they were still hit or miss on who they were bringing back at this point. I think she could have been an interesting character. I think she was interesting. I think it could have been more interesting if we got past the initial presentation of her and into things that make her tick beyond that. That's what I wanted, and we didn't. You just can't get to that in an episode. So.
Since you brought up the LaForge episode standard, I will say that I think these last couple of episodes, not to make too many assumptions about Jimmy's opinion, but I feel like we finally got to what you were saying before about, like, now we're getting to the likable Bashir. As far as this is kind of, overall, I didn't have as many problems with him as you did in the first season, but I really liked him in this in the previous episode. I did see the Cardassians episode, and we finally got that Garrick thing that the whole spycraft banter. Loved it, and so
Yeah.
I wrote, and it wasn't this much. It was just more of he was putting a little bit of a full court press on her, but not in a bad way. I shouldn't say maybe not full court press, but he was putting the moves on. So I wrote, a little of the old our old friend Quagmire Bashir LaForge here.
He started the episode in the LaForge territory where but I don't think he stayed there. Yeah. I don't think he stayed there. I mean, part of his preparation for her was he had been in a two-way conversation with her. It wasn't like Leah Brahms where she showed up and he was just researching her, but he did fall in love with the idea of her before he really met her.
Right.
And so that's a little bit Geordie. And the being so insistent was a bit Geordie. But then as it progressed and she was receptive, it became very not Geordie. So it was
almost Riker-ish.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, come on. No, all right. See, that's kind of the point. Well, I'll come back to that in a moment. Mm-hmm. When she first arrived, as I was saying, she gave off that kind of vibe, and what she said almost immediately I caught some sort of mutual interest there. The way that she acknowledged that they had been communicating, and it was sort of like scientific information being exchanged. It felt like they were probably getting along well with that kind of attention to detail and communication. I think you could tell she respected that, but was also expressing that in such a way of by way of confirmation, did you do this? Did you make any adjustments here? And that sort of thing. And right away, this is the sort of thing I was talking about. The thing was going to come across as being too pedantic or particular for the regular people in the crew, so forth. But
regular.
Yes.
Quote unquote.
Yes.
Well, when we begin the episode, we're told that she is the first Melora, the title character. Mm-hmm. We're told she's the first Elatian in Starfleet, and they're from a planet with low gravity. And I get that it's a budgetary thing, but somebody that came up in low gravity shouldn't look so humanoid. They should look quite different,
right?
Because of the pressures of gravity on the body.
Should look like MODOK or something.
Oh my God.
Something different for sure.
Yeah.
They had to accommodate her because while on the Enterprise D she would have gotten around fine, the Cardassian space station, I don't know if you've noticed, but the design is they have to step over every entryway.
That's
and
funny.
If you think she could hover like Pike's wheelchair, they made a mention that the metal of the Cardassian station interfered with their hover technology.
Yeah.
So they had to put the ramps in.
I like that.
They went out of their way to explain it in continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But I also like the tongue-in-cheek of we built a crappy set that's not accessible. Here you go.
I like that we had another cartographer, and wasn't one of Picard's recent
love interest? Yes.
Wasn't she a stellar cartographer? Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't realize that's what she was.
And cartographers they'll be important, they would be important in the future.
In the Star Trek Titan novels, she keeps the stellar cartography room in low gravity, so anybody that comes in there has to adjust to her because she gets a lot more confident by then.
I feel like wouldn't everybody want to be in low gravity? Wouldn't that be fun?
It would be fun. It would be.
Well.
Yeah.
Not all the time, which we'll get to, but yeah.
I think it could be efficient if they. I don't think it would work quite like the way they were showing it. It would be more efficient for certain kinds of tasks, but sure. You have to worry about the atrophy. I was thinking about that before too. They probably visit her world frequently enough, right? I mean, I don't know, but
it didn't sound like they've had a ton of visitors on her world, and not a ton of Elysians have left the world. And I'm sure the gravity is probably a big part of that.
The first thing I thought of when I saw the wheelchair, maybe they called it something else, but this guy, Mike Kozar, I think he still does comedy here in Columbus, stand-up. This is when the first Avatar came out, so this shows you how old this joke is. But he talked about, man, Avatar is so amazing, and these people have these avatars and on this world, on the other side of the galaxy and everything, but not one bit of advancement in wheelchair technology. Still in the same kind of wheelchair that we have in the 20th century.
But that was explained in universe that the hover wheelchairs didn't work. So
it was. Yeah. So, but I would already thought of this joke before.
Yeah. The look O'Brien and Dax exchange as Bashir's going on about Melora before she shows up is very telling, and I liked it. I like that little bonding behind his back of poor guy. She has these braces on, and the metal brace she's wearing is flexible. It's like elastic metal. I don't know what that is, but it looked interesting.
I didn't catch that really.
Her whole getup, and maybe this, I don't know if this mattered or not, but it reminded me of the aliens, the good aliens in Galaxy Quest. Remember when he's got the cane at the end? I don't know if that's just the end or throughout the movie.
Yeah.
They're all walking kind of funny. And it was very similar to the way her thing was. So, yeah.
Interesting. Bashir says, we built this wheelchair for her, and she's like, oh, but you've changed it. I guess I'll adapt. When he's like, no, we can get you the other one. Nope, I'll adapt. She comes across so hostile and prickly right away.
Yeah.
And I guess we can discuss that if you're used to people treating you a certain way, you do that as a defense mechanism and it's justified, but still she seems like a jerk. And it's kind of, I guess it's good, right? That you have a different bodied person that's a jerk and not just that you can dislike for legitimate reasons.
I think they pushed it so hard that, I think it's supposed to be like, man, she stands up for herself and that's cool and da-da-da.
Not stands up because, she does with the brace.
Oh,
but,
wow.
I did not walk right into that. I rolled right into that.
All right. Well, this is actually a good time to bring the autistic coding thing back up again.
Yes.
This is like, I forgot to give you some examples. Like one of the more famous examples more recently would be Wednesday, from the series Wednesday.
Oh.
That is an example of a coded character like that. And the example that Jimmy just gave, actually, she wasn't really being a jerk. She just wasn't using the standard social convention to project an air of apology for what she had said. She didn't couch it in a way and in a certain tone to keep it from coming across as though she were being a jerk.
Yeah.
It's like she made it up. She observed, something's different.
So the observation's not what made her a jerk, in my opinion. It was more like when Dax is like, okay, we're going to take out the runabout. Well, you don't need to come with me. I can do that myself. Well, you're an ensign.
No,
so you have to come with you.
I was going to get there. But I'm just saying for that one example, that's a very, that's something that someone's going to hear and misunderstand in a way that's like little things like that will come across as abrasive. It'll seem like she's being fussy, but she really was just saying, oh, this is different. If she had done it in a different tone or said, oh, wow, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to try to do this. And that's okay. Just tone. But when you get to things like that, procedures, I prefer to work alone. She's stating preferences, but doing it in a way that is maybe inappropriately persistent and certainly not a way that is probably appropriate to speak to commanding officers in that way as well. She was just ignoring rank and just going, bowling through and jumping to certain conclusions quickly and presenting them as though they were facts, or rather the implication that she was being discriminated against. You don't understand. I'm disabled. You weren't in my position. I'm doing this. You're trying to stop me because of this. You're treating me differently because of this. Obviously not really knowing the situation. So, from our perspective, we see what she's doing. I guess what I'm saying is, yes, you were correct, but there's also those other little things they're sprinkling in, but they were actually presenting a pretty accurate picture back then, probably without meaning to, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. It's because we've already been talking about Melora. We should talk about who plays Melora. That would be...
No, I'm sorry.
That would be Daphne Ashbrook, best known for Doctor Who the movie, where she was the main companion, the 1990s Paul McGann movie. 5 episodes of JAG, and this 1 episode of Deep Space Nine, according to IMDb. She does have 64 credits. Hollywood Heights, I guess she did 61 episodes. Back in 2012 was their last big role, but a lot of guest spots before that. I liked her. Interesting actor. I thought it was well played. She gave an interesting layered performance.
Yep.
She was compelling. It's a shame she didn't get more work there. It's a shame she didn't come back.
Yeah.
So about this time of the episode, we get introduced to the subplot, which is Quark talking to a traitor, and it's that mask again, the Uridian mask that James Cromwell wore. The traitor's name is Ashrock, and he is played by Don Stark, who is best known for Peggy Sue Got Married, 200 episodes of That 70s Show, the movie Cafe Society, and playing Nicky the Nose in Star Trek First Contact.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wait, who is he in That 70s Show?
He's Bob. He's the neighbor.
No.
Pinchiotti.
Yeah.
He put on the Cromwell mask, you don't even recognize him.
Wow. I was like, how did I miss him? And I'm like, I get it.
I mean, the voice, just nothing. I mean, his face looked like somebody. No, I couldn't place he reminded me of somebody else I know, I guess, but that would not have popped in my head at all.
So while Quark's talking to this guy and holding his sacred relics hostage for a large payout, because that's what Quark does, we meet Phallic Cott, played by Peter Crombie, best known for the movie Seven, My Dog Skip, Rising Sun, and The Blob.
What he should be best known for, and I think he's best known for, is he was Crazy Joe Davola on Seinfeld for several episodes. So, and I didn't recognize him under the makeup either. And then when I went back and looked, I was like, yeah, I guess I can see it.
Wait, so
5 episodes.
who was he in this episode?
He was the guy that was coming to kill Quark.
Oh,
with the big nose thing.
I thought you were saying that. I thought you were saying that was Bob.
No, that was the other guy.
No, Bob was the Eurydian with the mask James Cromwell wore in the previous episode. That's like the third time we've seen an alien wearing this mask.
Dude, while we're talking about that same makeup face, I didn't like the Crazy Joe Davola makeup. And maybe it's just I didn't like the nose thing.
The first I thought it was a beak, and then you saw it was attached to get at the chin.
I liked it, but I'll walk that back a little because I liked that they showed him eating around it, because that was my immediate thought. Was like, how does this guy eat? It's like, pretty easily.
But you need somebody to grab him because it's a handle. You need somebody to grab the handle on his face at some point.
And of course,
maybe that's why he didn't want the soup because of the.
That makes sense. Yeah,
he's like, I can't eat that.
Yeah.
Good point. I mean, he could use a spoon to go inside.
Right,
but yes, I agree with your.
Especially when he has to, like, you're kind of sipping out of the bowl at the end. You have to get the.
Oh yeah, he could do that.
No.
So this is actually an episode about two disabled people. Because they can't eat the
facing
soup.
Challenges, yes.
Facing challenges, not disabled, differently able. So then we go back to ops, and we're talking about the Melora problem, which I guess I was thinking, how do you solve a problem like Melora?
By not creating one, she says.
And then she says, no one can understand until they sit in the chair. And you see Bashir make a look, and I think this could be me reading into it, but I really think he wanted to say, I have sat in the chair, but he wisely did not, because he was sitting in the chair before she arrived.
If only.
They talk about baths and showers, and he says, I'm a shower man myself, which seems wrong in some way, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
When she talks about slipping into a warm bath.
I rewound it because I was like, what did he say?
Yeah,
I thought it was funny. It was just like a little. It's just like a little because she was making metaphor, and he just did the.
I think he was trying to make a little joke that fell flat, but
it seemed to land on her, from my opinion. But,
I thought it was. I actually liked it once I figured out what he said.
He could not have been more obvious though, and he's like, "Look at that picture. Is that your husband? Your boyfriend? Come on, dude. You can be a little less awkward there." And it seems very odd that it seems like he is the first one to ever call her on her attitude and defensive-ness. I mean, I know she's just an ensign, but I feel like somebody in her life would have called her on it before now, at least in the academy.
Yep.
Probably has, but not with that level of compassion and understanding. Again, the whole. I'm not sure if I'm getting it across, but this is, when they write autistic characters and they say they present them as this is what one is like. That is what one is actually like. With the way that she's behaving is very realistic, but they usually make them those weird little robotic kind of things if they're going to call it out as being literally that. In most series is so. I just think it was a performance that was ahead of its time, but they didn't realize what they were doing in a good way. In other words, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So she accepts his date, and they go to the Klingon restaurant on the promenade, the new Klingon restaurant, because there was a Klingon restaurant. I guess there's now a second, or the other one closed down. I don't know. But that's where we meet the Klingon chef, played by Ron Taylor, who is best known for Trading Places, the movie. He played Big Black Guy. 4 episodes of Matlock, 2 episodes of Twin Peaks, and 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine as the Klingon chef. He
was also one of the original Audrey 2s. Audrey 2 in Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway.
I think his restaurant is referenced pretty frequently in Deep Space Nine, but the character's only seen once more, and I really wanted him to be a reoccurring character because he was fun. Yeah, I wanted more of him.
And I was like, why is he singing? And I was like, okay, now it makes sense once I saw his track record. Is Klingon food, I know we've seen it several times, is it more like eating the hot, like molten lava wings or sushi? Do you think it's like, oh, this is a challenging food to eat and I'm going to cry? Or it's just like sushi where it's like, it's an acquired taste isn't the right word because I know plenty of people love sushi. I'm not a huge fan, but I also haven't.
Well, you will be though. Once you require
I think it probably is. I think it probably is like sushi that a lot of people would think it's gross until they try it, and then some people would like it.
Love it, yeah.
I mean, it was all gummy worms and rice noodles, but
right.
They looked alive
when they were actually eating it,
Right.
rather than obviously on the plate, it was like actual worms wriggling around or some animatronic or something.
What did you say it was though? Gummy worms and rice noodles?
Yeah. Well, they actually ate like what we saw them slurping.
Well, no, but I was trying to think of like what it looked like to me at the time. Interesting.
Obviously, on the plate, it was moving. So,
I'm not disagreeing with that part. I just wondered if they actually said that that's literally what they have when they.
Oh, that's just behind the scenes stuff. That wasn't. Right. Yeah. That's what it is. Well, that is what it was.
Okay. Yes. All right. To clarify, I understood it was behind the scenes. I just wanted to know if they ever specified two people here. This is exactly what we're using as the prop.
According to Kirk Lofton, I believe, who plays Jake Sisko, he said that's what it was. I was listening to him talk about this episode. So
interesting.
Or maybe he was making a joke. I don't know. I think that was him. I think I heard it on that episode. But anyway, I actually really liked the ordering scene quite a bit because Bashir's like naming things, and then his whole comment of, is that too much for two? To the Klingon chef. And then, of course, the turn with her calling, you think she thinks it's gross, but no, she just wants fresher worms. And then the Klingon throwing the food on the floor. I don't know who's going to clean that up, but it was just, that whole sequence was great. Yeah. It was so well put together. And then they ate it all, though, which was kind of gross.
Actually, that almost, I just thought about it, almost felt like an Orville scene.
Yeah.
The way that was structured. Just the subtle humor of this is, the guy delicately going through like this is they're at a 5-star restaurant and just kind of, and then she just, this whole swerve. Sorry, not too much time. Like that's fine. Yeah.
Bashir talks about wanting to be a tennis pro. That's the least surprising thing he's ever said, right?
Really? No, I don't know. I assume.
I mean, just look at him.
Well, I guess, but I just, I honestly didn't expect him to say anything other than yes, that's exactly when I wanted to become a doctor. And I dedicated my life right then and there and just kept going. But that was an interesting twist.
Yeah.
Or swerve, or whatever.
Well, it was a little bit of lowering his defenses and admitting his flaws, which is nice because it helps make his character more likable and interesting. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. They talk about, he tells her in space, we all depend on each other, which is, the message of Starfleet, right? We all got to help each other out. And very anti-Republican these days. Mm-hmm. She invites him in and they kiss. Aw, so sweet. Tells him it's her brother in the picture.
I didn't, and you kind of already addressed this, Jimmy, but I didn't think we were going to get an actual low gravity scene. I was like, there's no way they're going to get into it. And I was like, oh.
We got more than one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's cool. Bashir calls it astonishing. I know that word. I don't know that I've ever used the word astonishing in real life.
I agree.
If I've ever heard anyone in real life say the word, I'm astonished. This is astonishing. Astonish me.
Sorry, that's not where I thought you were going with that. But although that does seem like a rare.
It's a great word, but I don't think it's ever happened in outside of art.
I thought what you were going to say is it seemed like an odd way to describe the sensation of what he was doing. It seems like it shouldn't implies some sort of surprise. First of all, I would think that people would have gone through things like that before if they work in space. That sensation, but
him using that word, that too. That's a good point too, because I was thinking that when we were talking about low gravity situations with like the people on the International Space Station.
Wouldn't they be trained in some whatever?
Right. They do it, right?
I assume
it's implied. Sure. They pan to the window.
Low gravity style. Well, she's certainly much looser after that. So it was one of the situations. I guess she just needed to get laid, right?
Oh no,
Bashir, my man.
Because then her and Dax bond in the next scene over Vulcan music and the practicality of romance and stuff.
Yeah, that's where I wrote so much for the Bechdel test.
That is disappointing. I wish they were talking about science instead. But
the low gravity sex scene reminded me of the movie Moonraker, the Bond movie, the Bond movie set in space, which also did capitalize on Star Wars and all that stuff. That movie finishes with that kind of scene. But I will say for the Bechdel, not the non-Bechdel test passing scene, I like that they actually got in the conversation about long distance relationships, essentially. Which, I mean, you're tough on Earth. I can only imagine being separated by
space,
several star systems.
Well, on Earth in the Star Trek era, you just beam wherever, so long distance would be fine. You could live in France and date somebody in Australia; it doesn't matter.
That's true, right?
But now you have to live in it's the other star system is the equivalent.
Yeah.
No, wait. Do you actually know that as far as the lore? I mean,
You could just beam across the planet?
Yeah, did citizens have access to that sort of technology for recreational use or whatever, or just...
According to the novels, anyway. Quark goes to tell Odo about the guy that wants to kill him. Of course, Odo already kind of knows about the other guy, the guy and their history and all that.
That was fun.
Odo is unusually unsympathetic. Like, yes, of course he's going to mess with Quark, but I was surprised. I forgot that we did see Odo try to save Quark or actually look out for him at all. I mean, all he says is, I'll buy a piece of you if you die. I'll watch you, but no guarantee. You expect him to say that, but you don't expect him to do that. And when Odo's like not at all involved in his kidnapping, it's like, that's weird. Where's Odo?
Yeah, I kept expecting him to turn into something.
Yeah.
Surprise, I've been here all along watching because I knew this was going to happen. No, that's, I guess I did think about that at the time. I kind of assumed that maybe he was just kind of messing with him, but at the same time, it felt like they had regressed too far back to the beginning of the first season. Like it was legitimately adversarial in some way. Like he was legitimately happy at the idea that Quark might get hurt. And it felt, I don't know. Yeah, too much.
So at this point, Bashir is going to heal Melora from research that other people have spent decades on, but he figures out in an hour or so.
Right.
At the risk of spoiling, Keith, shut your ears for 30 seconds.
I can't.
Okay.
Wait, but before you get into this, no, I just want to say that I didn't find it that implausible. We're supposed to think that this is been going on about the Wonder Kid thing. There wouldn't be a high demand for this sort of research by now. This was something that they were working on probably decades. It was probably shelved back then because they couldn't figure it out, and then they probably had other workarounds, and then there would be no need to compensate without. They cured
the common cold. They cured insanity. Yeah,
but like you said, they weren't even in situations where they would need an ordinary wheelchair. That had to be pulled out of. So there you go. All right.
Well,
ears off.
Okay. What I was going to say, later in the series, they decide to tell us that Bashir is actually like a genetically engineered super genius. And I feel like they were just watching episodes like this and going, how do we believably retcon everything he's done that he shouldn't have been able to do? Oh, yeah, by the way, he's a genetically engineered super genius.
Yeah. It makes sense that he, like he said, he's the boy wonder or whatever. So some of that makes sense. But yeah,
it's almost Wesley Crusher times 50.
Yeah. Because I felt the same way. Like, he's good, but because why didn't she do this before? But
so,
it did make me think, though, that the fact that he was willing to do all this for her and all that kind of was or that she was willing to listen for once to somebody say, hey, maybe you want to try this, was also we have to expedite this romantic relationship and make it happen really fast kind of a thing, too. So
I think the difference between 1993 and now is in 1993, I would have taken totally for granted that she would want to be cured, quote unquote, and locked. Whereas now watching in 2023, it's like, dude, what are you doing? Leave her alone.
Let her make her choice. Yeah.
She has different body. It doesn't mean you need to fix her. She's not broken. She's just adapted to a different environment.
I had that same reaction. Same reactions. Yeah.
But
sorry,
different time, 30 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Quark waits way too long to call for help when he enters his dark quarters and the lights don't work, right? Like, he had plenty of time to call Odo, and he did not.
Yeah, he should have known right away. I thought that too. Like, he of all people should know right away. Yeah. Did you guys like the B story? Maybe I don't know that I disliked it. It
felt like we'd already seen a version of it before.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it dovetailed in when it really didn't need to or shouldn't have. Yep. That's what made it feel really extraneous.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right. And then it felt like it was supposed to be kind of funny, and then this guy ends up shooting our titular guest star,
who only survives because of what Bashir's been doing to her.
Right.
I kind of like that, though. I don't know.
You mean having sex with her, right? That's why she's
no, that's not. That's not what I meant.
Her heart. It's again like Star Wars kind of did the same thing, where Padme couldn't survive because her heart was broken. Yeah. Here, her heart was stronger.
Gotcha.
So she was able to fight off the phaser.
No, they gave us some technobabble to explain it, but it's like, yeah. It did really offend me when when Bashir asks how she slept, and she's like, it was terrible. Like, sleeping on the bed was so uncomfortable, and he laughs. He's like, you'll get used to it. That's not the appropriate reaction. Show her a little bit of sympathy.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm really confused. This is where the episode didn't work for me. Is she wanted to turn her anti-gravity back on as a relief. That's not the problem. And him saying you can't, for the next few days, this is reversible, so you can't go in the anti-gravity. Again, makes sense. But he basically says you can never go in the anti-gravity ever again once this process is complete. And that's like, wait, is it reversible or isn't it reversible?
Right.
It's pick a lane. Like, she should just be able to tough it out for 3 or 4 days and then go back in the anti-gravity, right?
Yeah. Right.
But that's not the way they present it. The way they present it is she'll lose it forever. And if it was irreversible, but she could go back in the anti-gravity in a few days, that's a whole different decision than what they were doing. And so it really just, maybe they didn't have time to discuss the ramifications of the story, but that's where you get rid of the B-plot and actually dig into the story instead of just trying to smooth it over quickly.
Yep, I agree. And of course, then they would have titled it Medical Ethics, but which would have been...
And just that false, making the choice too dichotomous. It's just that false threat hanging over.
I hate those false either-or constructs.
Yeah, it raises the stakes artificially, not in a natural way.
Yeah.
Just like the gravity. Oh God, it's artificial gravity. Raising the stakes.
Low gravity raises stakes. Actual gravity lowers stakes, right?
But
that's how I put them on a grill.
Yes. Yeah, that is absolutely right.
I just drop them right out of the package and gravity puts them on the grill.
Sure.
And then I have to fight against gravity to take them off the grill.
That took me way too long. I was too busy sticking, but I bet gravity in a different way too. But
that's a callback to like 40 episodes ago.
Stakes and stakes. Yeah. Wow.
I think it's more of a testament to Disney's litigiousness rather than their lasting power, that when Dax references The Little Mermaid, she mentions Hans Christian Andersen instead of Disney.
Yeah,
nice.
I completely agree. But I think that's a fantastic analogy, though. I really
is, but I really think she saw the Disney movie and she was trying to sound smarter by bringing up the fairy tale. Just admit it, Dax. Come on. If it was anybody else, I think they were posing. But because it's Dax, she probably has just read the fairy tale. So
next season, they're going to talk about Winnie the Pooh, I think.
Next season of Strange New Worlds, where probably, not the Deep Space Nine, because Winnie the Pooh is still under copyright back then. Yeah. So then the felon comes back. He murders the Uridian in the mask, steals a runabout. Once more, why doesn't Sisko just beam him off? Why is there this whole thing of, let's put him in a tractor beam? Oh, now he can shoot people. Why is there this whole hostage thing in the media? Either beam him off or beam the hostages off. There was never any discussion about raising shields, and Sisko also had plenty of time to act before he would have ordered them to raise the shields anyway.
Raise them!
Then he tries to escape through the wormhole. At that point, Melora releases the gravity and gets to be a hero, which that was the way they wanted to show. And then they could very justifiably talk about her losing herself. I don't think she has to be a hero with that ability to talk about losing herself, but I guess for the 1993 audience, that was a more simplistic story. That
makes a lot of sense when you mention that. Yeah.
And then they all beam over except O'Brien, which bothered me a little bit because then they're like, okay, we're going to go home. And they all stay there, and O'Brien has to drive him back by himself. Is O'Brien that hard to ride with? Or do they just hate O'Brien that much that nobody wants to ride back with O'Brien? Because normally there's a group of people. You don't make one person ride back with us. Somebody volunteers to go ride with the other guy, right?
Right. You want to ride with me? You know what? I was already in this car.
Right. Right. Somebody's like, oh, I'll do it. I'm his buddy. Come on.
That's hilarious.
Then we get that last date with the Klingon restaurateur singing, and she talks about wanting to remember it. Just sit there for a while. It was a sweet ending.
She says, I want to remember all this, and it took me back. You know where I'm going to when Spock says "forget" at the end of Requiem for Methuselah. I will say this is more earned than Kirk's loss there, but I still felt like it didn't feel like they were that in love. Like Sitting on the Edge of Forever, you know why it works? Because we know these guys have been hanging out for a long time. This is like, has it been a week?
It's been like 2 days.
Yeah.
They've got on one date.
Yeah. Maybe I'm overstating what she was overstating, but...
I'm with you. I
think Bashir will forget. Like I said, not as unearned, I don't think, as Kirk's, and definitely not as great a moment. Obviously, I think is a great moment. In a not good show.
The most unbelievable part of this episode is he's falling in love with her, because we all know he's in love with Garrick. Maybe he just hasn't admitted that to himself yet.
And ironically, I so much love that last line of Requiem for Methuselah that I never forget to mention it on the show all the time. Ironically, that I forget. Going way back, I guess this is my one fashion note, and Perv Corner. One of the Dabo girls comes in to Quark's trying not to die, and I wrote, "Is this the first underboob in Trek history?" Yeah. Well, dear listeners, I went back and did my research. So on the original show, that was one of the notes that Bill Teese got all the time was, you can't show anything below the nipple. The first person in Trek, according to Alpha Now, Trapedia.com. Our girl Tasha Yar in The Naked Now was the first. So this obviously got my attention. And of course, unbilled, uncredited. So that's disappointing. While we're on Perv Corner, we'll keep it going. This is my next note. Our girl, Melora, the titular character. How can I forget? She says, when the procedure is starting, well, maybe you can tell me why my backside is getting warm. I was like, whoa.
Is that where Elysians keep their genitals?
Maybe it is, but much like the underboob, that also maybe sit up and pay a little more attention. Last note is my alternate episode, which is the Melora hardens in the episode as Jan Levinson, and Bashir's in love with her, much like Michael Scott was, and so it's that kind of relationship, and they have a dinner party on DS9.
When I heard the name Melora, that's the first place my mind goes to, too. The first time I watched this episode was before The Office aired, so... But yeah.
I've been a fan of Melora Hardin since third grade, so I go way back with her. So I think she improves everything. So
she's great,
and that's all my notes.
And my alternate episode is just she stays or reoccurs or something to more develop that character. I don't even need the romance between her and Bashir. In fact, I prefer if that didn't work out, I will just want to have her on a different level in the show.
Yeah,
we did talk about this. Was directed by one of the regulars, Woodridge Colby. It has 4 teleplay by credits. 4 writers had their hands on this episode, which seems totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Well, Mike explained some things.
Yeah. Michael Piller, the showrunner, is one of them. Evan Summers, who had worked on Battle Lines last season, the episode where Kayapaka died on the alien planet. And then he'll also have a 3rd episode next season that he's credited for. Stephen Baum, spelled like L. Frank Baum. This is his only Star Trek writing credit. He's also written for The Adventures of Sinbad, Hercules, Dr. Quinn, Lonesome Dove, those type of things. And then the final writer is James Crocker, best known for writing for the 80s version of The Twilight Zone, Stargate SG-1, and Deep Space Nine. He has 5 writing credits, including last week's Cardassians, the last Deep Space Nine episodes. I guess that was 2 weeks ago. And 2 more episodes this season and 1 next season. Although the Cardassians in this he's got teleplay by, the other ones he's got story by, so a little bit less involved. Okay. Keith, do you have anything else, and or we didn't ask you? Do you want to give us some thoughts on Cardassians before we rank?
I think they're an underrated species.
I like the design with the spoon heads. Yeah.
I'm assuming you probably meant the previous episode titled Cardassians.
I did mean the previous episode, but also I should have known as soon as I said it when I was asking.
It's actually, it kind of plays in. I mean, it was titled that for a reason anyway. I mean, it actually does kind of overlap with the subject. Mm-hmm. I always enjoy the interactions with the Cardassians, especially in the modern era, so to speak, of modern. You know what I'm saying? In this present era that we're watching of Star Trek and how they're being fleshed out, they somehow just always manage to make politics seem fun. I'm not sure what it is, but just it always means we're going to have some dry-witted conversations with people pretending to know less than they kind of do, but also indicating that they kind of know what the other person is saying, but are lying, but I'm not lying, but I know you're lying, that kind of thing. Anyway, you get to see those things happen. Finally, the return of that, meme-worthy relationship with Bashir and Garrick.
Yep.
It felt sort of like the first time they were doing it, almost like they needed to kind of give us a reboot, not necessarily a reboot, better than previously on. It seems odd that they didn't do this more often, I guess, is the thing. But I guess this sort of story would lose the appeal if they were going to be doing this like every 2 or 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. There was actually a really compelling allegory they were presenting there. I thought it came a long way since this was a good example of them having advanced in trying to present the complications of post-war prejudice and those kinds of that kind of fallout, reverse racism, so to speak, even though that's, a closer approximation to what it is than what people usually try to present, in other words. But I think what went through my head at the time was the movie White Man's Burden from way back when. Yeah, I think it was John Travolta. They essentially just look at this weird Twilight Zone thing. Hey, hey, white people, what if white people were treated the way black people? There's just doing a straight flip without really doing. I mean, they weren't really presenting anything that was useful. It was just more like, this is a way that you can see yourself in this position. Now, do you understand? The Star Trek episode, the TOS, was a Balance of Terror, or what was the one with the
was that Your Last Battlefield?
Yeah, I guess it would. Yeah,
half black, half white.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a very basic thing. That's something that you probably needed to show back then. The point being, you needed to try to distance the intended audience far enough away from seeing themselves as being portrayed in a negative light, I guess. Mm-hmm. To not take it personally and be able to be compassionate about, obscuring, first of all, making them feel sympathy for a character that doesn't literally resemble the people they already hate, and seeing the antagonist is someone who does not literally look like them, for them to go, oh, wait a minute. Apart from that, in this episode, I mean, they were really showing the complexity of having an aggressor put in that position. Aggressor, I guess. I don't, for lack of a better word. The Cardassian boy being taught to hate himself, even under the being couched in the way that his parents saying things like, "Well, we love you, though." He's being taught them, and no, we're kind to him because he's different than these other Cardassians because we love this one, that kind of thing. But he's just soaked in this environment continually, and they gloss over how I'm sure that the other Bajorans might have treated him. They focus literally on whether or not the parents were beating him or something, which I thought that was going to be the swerve at one point, but that wasn't the case. That wasn't some reveal they were meant to shock you with. It's just, he's just in an environment where it's just that self-hatred becomes ingrained. And that was a good way of demonstrating what happens just in ordinary, domestic racism that we're used to dealing with. It seemed like there were multiple layers and swerves, first of all, with the political contexts, the layers of reasons why something like that would even be planted as a seed for later, which I thought was brilliant. And then being surprised to see, because I was kind of buying the way that Dukat was feigning outrage at first, about like the civilian leadership made me do this, essentially. This is an awful thing. It was a travesty. I never would have wanted this to happen, but they made me pull everybody out and leave everybody. So you're almost expecting this father to get there and be a monster, but he's reacting the way anyone would in that situation. Really, it almost seems like it could have been a tragedy, since the kid didn't explicitly want to go to Cardassia, but at the same time, it would have been far more tragic if he had been returned to Bajor to continue just being just essentially emotionally abused and just immersed in that for the rest of his life without even understanding it. Yeah.
We thought it was a pretty good episode. We ranked it in the middle of the 5, but that's because the first and third of the trilogy were ranked really high, but we really liked it overall.
Yeah.
Let's get to the rankings for this week. Who was your shady character in Melora?
Crazy Bob or Crazy Joe. Who was it?
Crazy Joe. The Uridian?
Whoever was after Quark.
Oh, after Quark was Crazy Joe. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait a minute. This is a different episode. No, is that this episode? Yeah, this is. Yeah. I got mixed up. Yeah, that is this episode.
Pilot Cop.
Yep.
Bob from The Wonder Years. Bob from that 70s show. Similar. Same era. Bob from that. He's my shady guy.
I'm going to say in Melora, all those defenses and acting the way she was and whatever. She was being a little shady to me. She wasn't saying what she wasn't being upfront about things. Keith, who was your shady character in Cardassians?
Well, I guess it would have had to been Dukat.
That's fair. I chose Dukat. Steven chose Garrick. But either way. Who is your annoyance in Cardassians, Keith?
Probably either the kid or his Bajoran father. I'll go with the father, I think. Or the adoptive father, essentially.
I think I chose the kid. Rugel. Is that the kid? Probably.
Rugel, yeah.
Who was your annoyance this week?
Oh, mine was Follett Cott. I didn't like him as... I just didn't like him, period. He annoyed me.
I chose Bashir, even though he was only half annoying. Half the time he was genuine, half the time he was annoying, but I'm going to still choose him. I feel like the chances to choose him as annoying are dwindling, so I'm going to get him winning this time.
Is that the criminal character you're talking about, the one who's coming back? The annoyance, the one that Steven named.
I think so.
Yeah, that guy. Whoever I was naming before is a shady character.
Yeah.
Both.
Who did you get a drink with for Cardassians, Keith?
Oh, that's easy actually. Garrick.
Me too.
I would have thought it was like, wait a minute. Oh yeah, duh.
Steven went with Bashir. And Megan Overholt was a guest host, and she went with O'Brien. But
I think Bashir is a very good choice for that too. I think
so too. For that episode, yeah. Who are we going to drink with this week?
I'm going with Bashir again. Poor guy. I'm going to try and help him forget.
Melora.
I'm going with Dax. I know it could be mean, but we're going to sit and giggle over Bashir.
I'll be at the other table helping him out.
Yeah, and we'll be looking at you giggling. Sorry,
look at those two idiots.
It's not nice. It's really a bad instinct. That's what I'm gonna do. I feel like Dax would do it in that situation. Trying to be as unmean spirited as possible, but more like the school. They got a crush on each other, whatever. Just the that giggly, not like the mean derision, but still not very nice or appropriate. Ranking the episode. Let's go against invasive procedures. Better or worse?
Comparable, perhaps, in some ways.
I think they're similarly comparable.
Yeah.
I want to go above, but I feel like I want to. I want to go above for good reasons, but if I go with my gut, if I go with my gut, I'm going to go below. I
understand what you mean because of one thing you said around the beginning, which I don't think this would have the same rewatch value for me that the other one would. I would say solely based upon that, but at the same time,
I'd probably rank it higher 30 years ago than I would today, for sure.
I think I'm going to go below just because of John Glover and Megan Gallagher.
That's another strong
We had
argument.
some great guest stars here, don't get me wrong. But
John Glover is always amazing.
Yeah. And
Lionel Luthor himself.
Yeah, I guess that's below. I mean, I kind of feel like putting it above because of a different type of enjoyment. But yeah.
Well, since it's below, it is at last place. Can't go any lower. But that's only because the season's been good so far. I would not say this is a bad episode. I think the fact that this is in last place shows you how good this season's been, personally.
Yeah.
Next week on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Captain Picard and Dr. Crusher discover things about one another when they're captured by an opposing alien race due to the fact that the Enterprise has come to allow the planet's other civilization the choice of being part of the Federation. Until then, live long.
And then I'll buy a piece of you and prosper.
The prosperous thing of having bought the piece, yes. Prosper posthumously. Yeah,
your descendants would prosper.
That's right.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?